By the end of July, Fighter Command had lost 118 aircraft. These were always replaced, but 80 squadron commanders had been killed, leaving Dowding with inexperienced pilots to fill the gaps. It was also apparent that Fighter Command's tactics were quite wrong.
As regards to tactics and formations, remember my rank at the time, we used to fly in formations of 3, which was a very clumsy way of flying, which I learned later on, of course. But probably the one disaster area in combat at that time, and I'm talked about when I was with 41 Squadron, was they used to have a weaver, top and bottom, who was normally a sergeant pilot. And you would weave and give top cover to the squadron. But to keep up with them and weave, you were losing more petrol than they were. And suddenly the squadron leader would turn off in one direction and you'd turn off in another. So then you had to go straight, fly straight and level to try and keep up, which was a rather hazardous procedure. So no, tactics in the units I served in were pre-war.
However, the changes in tactics only served to get the fighters to the combat. Once they reached the enemy, they trusted in their own skills and the performance of their aircraft to shoot down the enemy.
Indianer, rechts voraus! Kontakt. Spitfire. Wo sind Sie? Haben Sie noch Sichtkontakt? Ja, 11 Uhr tief. Gehen Sie in Schussposition. Okay, verstanden. Schieß doch, schieß doch! Kann nicht! Auf, jetzt wird! Sah gut aus. Daneben. Haben Sie noch Sichtkontakt? Ja, aus der Sonne. Jetzt. Gut, sah gut aus. Nicht getroffen. Horrido. Wo ist die zweite? Ich glaube, sie ist nach Norden abgetreten, nach Menschen. Dann lassen Sie uns nach Hause führen. Mein Benzin geht sowieso zur Neige. Guter Kampf, mein Freund. Ein Abschuss mehr. Vorsicht, bitte! Von hinten! Mein Motor geht aus. Ziehen Sie! Ich muss runter, mein Motor geht aus. Ich muss runter. Steigen Sie aus! Steigen Sie aus! Ich kann nicht steuern. Ich muss abdrehen. Zurück nach Hause, mein Sprit ist zu Ende.
I must have been in some sort of dogfight, and everything had gone, and I looked around, and over there, something was going on. So I charged over there, and there was a milling going on, so I went straight in towards the milling and chose a target. And as soon as I chose a target, it whipped by, you see. It hit more or less head on. So I chose another one, and that went by head on. Another one underneath. Oh, I can't get at anything here. What the hell? Oh, I realized I was in a circus, so to speak, and I was going the wrong way round. So I pulled up to an immoral turn, as they call it, straight up to lose speed and down again. And then I was in the circus and I could pick one up. The idea of, these things are happening and collisions possible and not realizing that one's in the circus going the wrong way around. They're 110s mostly, and they had a rear gunner, so it was quite useful for them to go into a circle to defend their entails and at the same time to be able to shoot back at whatever was going on. But I never thought of adopting a circular motion with other Spitfires.
On August the 13th, Goering switched tactics. Instead of concentrating on the fighters in the air, he turned initially to attacking the defense system of sector and radar stations. This was followed by an attempt to destroy the RAF by bombing airfields and armament factories. It was the critical phase of the battle. Had these attacks been pressed home continuously, Fighter Command would have either been destroyed or would have fallen back from their airfields in the southeast. This would have given the Luftwaffe air superiority and opened the door for invasion. But suddenly these attacks stopped. On September the 7th, 1940, the Luftwaffe launched its first attack on London, wrongly assuming they could break the will of the British people. On Sunday the 15th of September, the air struggle reached its peak. German bomber crews had been informed that Fighter Command was a virtually non-existent force and that their way through to London would be easy. Their illusion was soon cruelly shattered.
Operations calling. Operations calling. Keter and Jaunty squadrons scramble. Keter and Jaunty squadrons scramble. Vector 140, Angels 20. Tennis squadron scramble. Tennis squadron scramble. Patrol Canterbury, Angels 20.
Hello, short deck. Keter leader calling. Tally ho, tally ho. Pike calls with 109's dead ahead. My God, there's hundreds of the baskets. Never seen so many.
During the afternoon, more than 300 Spitfires and Hurricanes hacked the German formations. 56 bombers were destroyed, and dozens more returned to base with dead engines and dying crews. The route from London to the Channel was littered with German aircraft and German ambition. The date became known as Battle of Britain Day. It was the greatest day yet for Fighter Command, and for the few who had contested the battle. The invasion was postponed and then cancelled altogether. Britain would still suffer under a terrible onslaught of bombing raids, but the mainland was secure. Pilots remember the battle in many different, intensely personal ways.
The Battle of Britain afterwards has become a famous thing just because of the words, apart from anything else. And looking back, it was a very important occasion, and yes, it did save us until the Americans came in. But at the time, everybody was at war. It just happened that we were the people, the Air Force at the time was in the thick of it, and other people weren't. But they all knew that, I mean, people are getting prepared to defend the beaches. They'd be just as heroic as we had been if they'd been attacked. It wasn't until afterwards it was realised quite how important the situation was.
Being dead tired, really tired. I don't mean just tired. One was really tired. It was a funny feeling. Perhaps it was being on readiness when you weren't actually flying, but one was tired. And It's very hard to tell people this. Don't say you're exhausted, you're not, but you're very tired. I think, luckily, I had to do most of my fighting when I was a young man. I wouldn't like to do it as an older man.
Waiting for that telephone to ring was the most exhausting part of being a fighter pilot during the Battle of Britain. When it rang, the message may be, the Naffy's here with tea, which was you enjoyed the tea, but somewhat shattering. When it rang and you were scrambled, it was a wonderful relief. Once you were strapped in the aircraft, in it, then you felt, we're on our way, we're doing something. So tension and tiredness, very much linked together.
By 1940, the Supermarine factory was working to capacity. Spitfires were being turned out in their hundreds. But towards the end of the year, disaster struck. In September, the Supermarine works at Itchen and Woolston were badly damaged by bombing raids. Working out of new headquarters at Hursley Park near Winchester, the Spitfire design team and management drew up a plan to disperse production across the south of England.
Lorries came along and picked up everything that was undamaged and a lot of stuff that was damaged, and took them away quickly. I mean, we took over bus stations, and we actually took over a laundry in one place, a factory which made steamrollers and all sorts of things. And within a couple of weeks, aircraft were actually coming off the line again. And I don't know exactly. There are some records of this, and I don't know exactly how long it took. But it wasn't very long before the production was up to standard again.
The development of the Spitfire also continued at a pace. Uprated engines, pushing the speed to 375 miles an hour, powered the Mark II that appeared at the end of 1940. This was rapidly followed by the Mark V in February 1941. This became the most numerous of all Spitfire variants and equipped no fewer than 117 RAF squadrons in the UK and overseas. When the Mark V became available, Fighter Command went on the offensive. They had been on the defensive since the Battle for France, and it was felt that pilots needed experience of taking the war to the Luftwaffe. Small formations of bombers, escorted by fighters, were sent over France to tempt German fighters into the skies. The Mark V was also the first Spitfire to carry bombs.
First the Hurricane, and now the Spitfire becomes a maid-of-all work. The latest pictures of the world's finest fighter shows her adapted for close support shallow dive bombing. In its new form, carrying one 250-pound bomb and 4 cannons, the Spitfire becomes an additional threat to Axis transport, supply dumps and shipping. As yet, a South African wing composed entirely of South African pilots is the only one using these new Spitfire bombers. They have been carrying out great work both on the 8th Army front and across the Adriatic Sea into Yugoslavia.
At the end of 1941, a new menace appeared in European skies. The Focke-Wulf 190 had a profound effect on fighter command.